Hey, all my Capricorn friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your December 2024 monthly horoscope. It's going to be a big month. It really is. These horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Capricorn, I'm referring to Capricorn rising as dictating the landscape of the chart and being the first house. This is also applicable to Capricorn sun and Capricorn moon. And if you have 3 or more planets in the sign of Capricorn, this video is for you as well. When I refer to a day and a time, it's based on the Pacific time zone. So please adjust for your location. It's going to be a big month. It really is. We have Mars retrograding from Leo all the way back into Cancer, which will take place until February of 2025. And Mars is headed back into an opposition with Pluto, but this time Pluto is going to be in Aquarius. So we have felt this energy recently, but now I think we're going to feel it in a whole new way, strong. We also have Neptune going direct in Pisces. It will dip its toe into Aries. We'll feel that vibration shift, and then it will retrograde back into Pisces for the last time for, like, I don't know, 100 and some odd 50 years or something. I have that written down somewhere. I'll be more clear on that later. What else? We have Mercury currently in a retrograde. It will go direct on the 15th. We have the month starts off with a new moon, ends with a new moon. I'll do separate videos on that. And we have Jupiter in its second square to Saturn. And this time we're going to see Jupiter is retrograde and Saturn is direct. Last August, we experienced it in the reversal where Saturn was retrograde and Jupiter was direct. So let me pull up the chart and show you what's going to happen. All right, so here we are at 9 a.m. on the 1st of December, and we see that the wheel is on Capricorn rising. So this is the landscape of the chart that we're talking about. The wheel will change as we move through the month, and I'll be verbally telling you the houses, but we see that the month starts off with Pluto entering your second house, and this is now in a loose opposition to Mars in Leo. Mars is going to go to 6 degrees, station there, and then retrograde on the 6th, heading back into your 7th house in January, I believe it'll be. So, but there's going to be a growing opposition, and these two guys are just intense. Pluto is going to represent that deep psychological imprint that has repressed you through fear, duty, obligation, a commitment that you may have made earlier on in your life, and now you feel potentially a need to liberate yourself from that commitment. We see that this is also starting to happen on your the access of money for you. So we see the second house is all about your individual skills and your money. And your voice and the imprint that your family had on you as a child. So this would be a strong sense of independence, a strong sense of adventure, potentially, because we see here that Aries is your 4th house, and this house influences that 2nd house. We also see that Leo is your house of other people's money. So as you express yourself individualistically, your creative talents, your creative knowledge, your the accumulation of the wisdom that you've garnished, you could literally make money by applying those principles and helping other people out. We see now that Mercury is at 19 degrees of Sagittarius in retrograde and opposing Jupiter. This is in your 12th house, Mercury, and then Jupiter's in your 6th house. So this is a very karmic axis. This is an axis of service. It's also an axis where we can inadvertently get in our own way. So as Mercury retrogrades over up till 6 degrees of Sagittarius, it's going to retrograde over the great attractor. This is at 14 degrees of Sagittarius, and it's giving Mercury an opportunity to experience the expansiveness of the law of attraction by applying the principles to everyday thought. And this to me is in a bit of an opposition to Jupiter, who wants to apply the big principles without having to do the everyday processes. It wants to just sit on the mountain and see the possibilities. So we see Jupiter, which is naturally the ruler of Sagittarius, and Mercury, which is naturally the ruler of Gemini, both being in detriment, having to do things from a completely different perspective. And while this feels a bit tense, I do think that there's an opportunity through the retrogrades to feel the fine tuning of epiphanies, or to apply through reevaluation where your belief system has been, and where inadvertently you may have been in a hoping phase versus feeling the faith of your actions and your thought. Let's go now. Let's see. Oh, let me do this real quick. Let's talk about Saturn. And Saturn is actually in a T-square to, Mercury. Hold on. Let me move the day. Let me go to the 3rd. It'll be more clear. This is interesting because now we see not only do we have the opposition from Jupiter and Mercury, but there's a focal point to Saturn in your 3rd house. Saturn rules your karmic history. It rules the history of humanity. It rules the obligations and duties that you feel. It's also a sign of leadership, and it is a planet that matures over time. So here, having your ruling planet Saturn in the 3rd house is tasking you to really develop a committed relationship with your faith and with your mind and how it works. So I mean this. You find yourself in a loop. Oh, I never find a parking space in this mall. Man, every time I come here, it's just always packed and I never find a spot. That is a deep belief you have about an experience you had that doesn't necessarily have to be brought into your present. Saturn is going to continue to task you, Capricorn, to see where your dialogue, where your belief system, where your thoughts are repetitive and almost habitual, and ask you to recalibrate those so that Saturn can start to bring in reward. And as Saturn continues a growing square with Jupiter, as they get closer and closer together, we could see you revisiting some themes from back in last August, around August, mid-August. So you might want to check your calendars and see what was going on back then. And you may remember, I'm not sure. And just for, and just again, I want to repeat, this axis here of the 6th and the 12th house is a very karmic axis. So as the planets are transiting through this, you have an opportunity to make choices that realign your vibration to your future versus your past. Hence Pluto in its opposition to Mars, trying to innovate you in your 2nd house. Let's now go to the 7th, where we will see Neptune. I believe it's later in the day. Let me go to the 8th. There we go. Neptune has moved direct. I think that this is an important thing to pay attention to, because Neptune is going to station in the sky, and then it's going to start to move forward. And in March, we're going to feel it shift into the Aries energy, where it has not been since like 1862. And we know what was going on in the United States back during that time. And then it's going to retrograde back into Pisces. At the same time, Saturn is growing in a conjunction with Neptune, and the North Node is going to shift into the sign of Pisces, where all these points will converge in the first part of 2025. I think it's important now to be aware of that, so that you are very mindfully and very consistently and very diligently being aware that your thoughts are things, and being aware of where you want to go versus where you have been. We do see that now Mars has gone retrograde. Mars went retrograde on the 6th. I skipped over the 6th because I needed to get later in the day. So we're gonna see and feel a growing opposition between Mars and the Pluto energy. And we're also going to be feeling it here with Venus. And when Venus is in Aquarius, she really wants to express herself with no holes barred. She wants to feel appreciated for her expansiveness and her willingness to address humanity at large and to work for that energy to improve it. So here, Mars in its individualistic energy of Leo is fighting for some sort of voice, wanting to express itself. But as it retrogrades back into Cancer, it's got to be aware of other people. And this is something that the Venus is teeing up for Mars as it makes that retrograde. What else do I want to say? We are going to see on the 11th the exact opposition between Venus and Mars at 5 degrees. Oh, sorry, 6 degrees. I'm a little early in the day. Let me go back to 12 o'clock. Now, whether it's exact or not, it's powerful, it's potent, it is expressive, and it is a tug of war. Here, Venus is wanting to do things that are a bit expansive, a bit out in the future, a bit untried, untested. She may even feel a bit rebellious. And Mars here is really sort of a bit hot. You know, Mars has been, as it traversed Cancer, it was really feeling the weight of the heavy emotions that Mars can feel, the anger, the resentment, the, impatience, the aggression. And in it, as it had its growing opposition to Pluto in Capricorn, it was really aware, Mars became more and more aware of the underbelly of why Mars feels this way. I was never treated well. I was never given a fair shot. I was never seen as the hero that I am. Now, Venus is wanting to move forward, and Mars is kind of hanging back and saying, wait a minute, I haven't been completely acknowledged yet. I think Mars is going to have to acknowledge himself. So this, being aware of this for you is important because, again, this is on your 2nd and 8th house axis of other people's money and how you could use your skills and innovation to engage other people. But again, I'd be mindful during this retrograde. I wouldn't want to initiate anything from Mars until I got past the opposition with Pluto. So this, you might want to just think about how you take your actions. Absolutely, for sure, most definitely. Okay. There's going to be a full moon on the 15th in Gemini. I'll be doing a separate video on that, as well as the new moon in Capricorn on the 30th. So look out for those 2 videos. But we're going to go to the 15th, and we're going to see that Mercury is turned direct. And this is going to be Mercury's opportunity a little later in the day. I'll just go to the next day. Mercury is going to have its 3rd opportunity to go over the great attractor. And while it will come into another opposition with Jupiter retrograde, I think that this is where Mercury, the information gatherer, the journalist, the news anchor here, can take that information and start to use that information in a way that makes it feel like we're moving the story forward. Again, we have this energy of Mercury and Jupiter both being in the opposite signs of their rulership. And so they're having to look and take action in a completely different way than they have in the past. And we also see that the nodes are now, while they're retrograding, they are on the supergalactic center, which is a point in the Shapley attractor. The South Node is sitting on this point called the supergalactic center, which is where you are source energy. And how do we engage the universe to bring us what we need? It's through our thoughts and through our emotions. First through our emotional body, and then through the thoughts that our emotions produce. So this is an opportunity to be egoless to outside conditions while old structures are still being demolished in order to bring forth the new structures that will take place and be the new tools that you use over the next 20 years as Pluto transits your 2nd house. We see on the 17th, Venus begins a nice little trine to Jupiter. It's pretty loose right now, but it's still in play. These 2 are considered friends. In some schools of thought, they can be on the challenging side, a little bit vain and boastful. But here, I think they're both firing on all cylinders. And Venus is very much looking how she can expand and innovate herself into her everyday life. And we see the square to Saturn is getting tighter and tighter. Again, you're going to revisit some themes from August 2024. Saturn is requiring relationships that are sustainable, that are really that you can see something that you know is committed and is viable in the earth experience. And at the same time, Saturn is wanting this material structure to be built from a divine inspiration. And it may be difficult to find how to balance that with Jupiter and Saturn squaring each other. Jupiter, again, representing expansion, but expansion thwarted in its detriment. Saturn, while it is not necessarily in detriment or fall, it is having to really look deeply into the soul and the ancestral history that is imprinted on the human as it tries to realign lifetime after lifetime. So it's a big square. It's a big deal. Not everything's a big deal. We see that exact on the 24th. That's Christmas Eve. Now, the exact is always, it's important to know that, but the feeling of this has been ramping up all month and will continue through the end of the year and into January. So this idea of expansion versus contraction, the idea of the human experience versus the spiritual knowing, and this stretching for a new sense of self-worth. We see that in Venus. And then we see the tug of war with Mercury, trying to figure out how to implement, because it's not easy to implement, because we are as humans, we are trained to think that our thoughts dictate our emotions, but our emotions actually dictate our thoughts. Okay, and then I'm going to go to Christmas Day. Day after. Okay, here we see the exact opposition to Pluto. I'm sorry, to Mercury and Jupiter. And here, this is where Mercury is really getting that third time around to implement that the principles of the great attractor, focusing on how it feels when I get what I want, how it feels when I feel the expansion of my own intentions. Sagittarius is a wealth sign, and it's a wealth that comes through business, through branding, marketing, writing, publishing, influencing. And Mercury rules media. So you could find yourself coming up with some new ideas and new inspirations that, while you can't implement them straight away, because you're having to really come down from the mountain and figure out how to, what technologies do I use? What platforms do I go on? What is my voice? It feels as if it's going to start to flesh itself out for you. And the square between Saturn and Jupiter is just the tension that you need in order to delineate what is most important to you. Sometimes tension is and frustration actually gets us to sit in a place that's more authentic. Okay. Now let's see. Mars is about to have an interesting conversation with Pluto. On the last day of the month, New Year's Eve, they are both at 1 degree. And while Mars is strong in Leo, it is in retrograde. So Pluto gets to win this argument every single time. And Mars is fighting for an old story. It doesn't like to change in Leo. There's a fixed sign. So it's saying, this is how I want to express myself. This is the kind of passion and the kind of fire I want. And as it retrogrades back into Capricorn, it really is going to have to understand the emotions behind the expression. It's kind of like, Leo rules the comic. And oftentimes, some of the funniest comedy comes from the darkest place in our lives. And I think this is kind of the culmination of the year's conversation between Pluto and Mars. And this, to me, is the strongest aspect that has been the main theme of the end of 2024. because as Pluto was in the last degrees of Capricorn and Mars was hanging out in Cancer, the conversation started. And now, as Pluto moves into Aquarius, we're taking that conversation to the next level. And Mars is the one having to really revisit how it shows up, because Mars is, again, already been in these two signs, feeling this energy. Pluto's going back into Aquarius and does what it does best, destroying what is not authentic and then rising like the phoenix to create what is. Okay, so my Capricorns, that's it for 2024. As we head into 2025, the energies are going to change dramatically. We'll see Jupiter move into Gemini. We will see Neptune feel the beginnings of its sojourn through Aries. We know that we're looking at, I said Jupiter will move into Gemini. I meant that Uranus will move into Gemini. Jupiter will move into Cancer. So let me just back that up for a second. First, we're going to see, we're feeling Pluto in Aquarius. Then we're going to feel a dip of Neptune in Aquarius, in Aries before it dips its toe back into Pisces. We're going to feel Jupiter move from Gemini into Cancer where it's exalted. And then we're going to feel Uranus move into Gemini. And that is really going to bring a lot of innovation. We're talking about, the planet that rules the unexpected, the travel into space in the sign of how we think, how we move, how we write, how we teach. It's going to be very exciting. All right. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Teri Hunter. If you'd like to book a reading with me, my information is below in the description. Have a lovely holiday season, and I will see you all in the new year. And be sure to hit that notification bell so you know when new content is coming out. Everybody have a lovely holiday. Bye-bye.